Welcome to the Grow Renaissance podcast. Let's nourish the world.
All right. Welcome to Pasture Prime Time, where we talk about food, farming, resilience, and the folks bold enough to rethink the whole system. Let me start with this. When the world gets more uncertain, who do you want in the conversation about food? Somebody in the glass tower writing reports? Or somebody who spent a lifetime in agriculture building real systems that can actually grow food where people need it most? That's exactly why we're glad to have Roger Pope, aka the Green Pope, with us today. Roger has spent a decade at the crossroads of farming, innovation, and full-blown agriculture problem-solving. From hands-on farming roots to designing hydroponic, aquaponic, and controlled environment systems across the US and beyond. He's been doing the work of turning bold ideas into practical tools. He's collaborated with researchers, scientists, universities, to improve plant nutrition, as well as that ultimate yield component that we always talk about, and food quality, the one I think actually matters the most, all while staying grounded in one urgent mission, growing for healthier tomorrow. Roger, I'm so glad to welcome you to the show, and thanks for taking some time out of your day to be here. Maybe we'll start with you filling in any gaps that I missed in the intro, but also having you answer this question. When you look back at where this all started for you, what was the moment that you realized traditional farming knowledge and advanced growing systems didn't have to compete?
Well, being a five-generation cattle rancher and farmer and in Florida, a lot of people always used to ask us, what was the biggest thing that we dealt with growing gardens or even feeding our cattle and different things. And I was always curious from a young age that I knew there was always implements of things being put in, ingredients put into food, whether it was for animals or for us, but then we eat it, overall we eat whatever the cattle or whatever else eats. And we found out that as I began to do this as a young age, my research got me out in the barn where I began to create a mindset of trying to figure out how to make things grow more natural, more organic, get it back to its basic stage. And so when I started doing this, research and seed and stuff, I found out how far we had came away from that genetic bloodline of seed and also with animals and stuff like that. And that's what made me really, at a young age, go after looking at how I could feed the whole world without having, billions of cattle and tons of food, that I wanted to get into that. So it really was something that started at a very young age, about 3 or 4 years old. And then about 15, 16, I really dove into it with I guess you'd say, a very magnetic field of just going after how can we live as a healthier tomorrow. That's why the slogan has always been something I've used is, if we can grow for a healthier tomorrow, then people are going to be better off. If we're just trying to figure it out and never get there, somebody else is going to do the same thing for generations. So,
well said. Oh, I don't know.
Put myself on mute there. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I don't know if it was my side or yours.
Yeah. Watching my mouth move. I was just saying thank you so much for explaining some of that, and it's a great starting spot. I would love to hear about a project that you've worked on that you thought was just mind-blowing, and share with us, where you started and where that project is today in terms of innovation or system design that you put together.
Yes.
If I can say something really quick, Roger.
Yes.
So one of the things, and this is something that I've told to Neil and I've told to multiple others before too, Roger has scientifically proven that music improves. I'm getting a delay. I'm getting some feedback. Can you guys hear me okay? I guess we might need to pause on that point. Okay, good. I'll continue. I hear myself on a delay in my ears. So one of the things I wanted to say about Roger is that he scientifically proved that music of all kinds, except for what was it, Roger, rap and punk, were the two that did
like
not.
A punk rock.
Yeah, we're the only two types of music that did not help the plants to thrive. It was one of the things that we've all kind of known, playing classical music for your plants and doing these different things, like that frequency would elevate them. So it was pretty phenomenal what I was seeing there down at the Eden Project, Roger, where you and I had met back in Florida. But I would see like that whole comprehensive approach from all those different angles. So I know that we're about to hear some pretty interesting things. I've never forgotten that, Roger.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I was approached at. It was in 2001 or 2021. I was approached by a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in quite a few years, and he wanted to build a project that I'd had a vision of for years, and it was the technology end of how you can create an atmosphere to grow the products and stuff, but then turn them into something to feed the world. And so I thought it was one of the, I guess you'd say, rocket ships that I could really take in 20, 30 years of vision and dreams and stuff and just run after it and go with it. So in about 6 weeks, I built a $4 million project down in Tampa, Florida. It's called Operation Eden. We called it Eden Project at the time. It took an old swamp. It used to be a junkyard, and they got the land, and they called me. It was 5 acres, and they said, what can you do with this? Well, when you're a visionary and you see things, you don't see what's on the property. You don't see what's in the person. You just go after the end product of what you see in them. And so when I went on the land, it was all grown up, and we drove around. I said, okay, I need this, this, and this. Let's get it done. And I just literally took off with the ground level, which was basically clearing the land, cutting all the, handfuls of trees down, things to get it built, and then turned it into a Walt Disney World, if you'd say. Building the right buildings on each parts of it, developing. We didn't even know there was a lake or pond because it had been grown over 40 years. So it was just, you couldn't even see it. Cleared it out, made it into the aquaponic end of it, built decks to be able to utilize the land, not only in the areas of training and equipping and educating, but also use it for weddings and different things. People could use the beauty of what it was going to become. And then I got into really saying, hey, now I can design and let the passion out of me to build a project where there's many different pieces of it. I always look back to like Mr. Walt, Walt Disney World. He had all these visions way before he even actually had any manifestation of any of them. And people just thought, man, this guy's wild and crazy. So what I did is I drawed it all out on a sheet of paper, and I kept all that stuff, with a pencil and paper, and I drawed it all out within about 24 hours. And then we developed it within less than 4 months. We literally developed the whole project. It was a chaos thing going on, but Amanda got to see a lot of the technology. So I use a lot of stuff like grounding, sound waves. I use a lot of technology within wind barriers. So I worked with a company, has a donkey on it, a big ass fan company, and started getting them involved in doing greenhouses where they could actually turn the wind energy that I needed. They could turn it from a point of a vortex that I always used a level horizontal, which was a hurricane. So when you're blowing across something, you can move it to that direction, but then you're going to have return fans blowing it back the other way to get the pollination, the things that I do to create this atmosphere. And in the midst of it, you got to also have it just like a human. You got to be able to feed it. So then I did the electrolysis and the magnetic fields and sound and everything within the atmosphere of the above, the limbs and stems of the trees, right? Growing this thing. Into the roots is where I applied all the electronics and the electrolysis, the grounding, and all that. And then I started utilizing it and testing it immediately on my growth patterns. So what used to take 7 to 14 days to grow in microgreen stage, I would grow in 3 days. And I turned the volume to the point where I could actually, I could pull our microgreens apart, and there's actually an umbilical cord inside the stem of it, which has never been seen or never been done. People say, how does that happen? Well, when you create something back to its normal stage, I say it's a trimester, every 3 stages, which is a 3-step period, you can bring things back to its genetic stage if it wasn't genetically altered. If it was just cross-pollinated, things like that. So if you grow seed and you take the seed and grow it 3 times in 1 year, and get it into plant form, get seed out of it. The third time becomes its natural form again. And so I started doing that with all different, we had 240 or 270 different products that we worked with, seed products. And I was trying to find more seed that was natural, that was older seed, things that I could utilize from genetic state of being organic. And that's when I got into really moving into a lot more of the water also. I was doing all this other stuff, but I didn't realize everywhere you go in the world, there's millions of different particles in different water sources. So when I growed, and whether it was upstate Canada, whether it was in America, whether it was down in the Caribbean, I had to realize that I was doing something on one end, but I wasn't putting the shoes on it for the running project at the other end, which is getting the water to produce the right molecules and things, the right environment, the right temperatures, the right elements to be able to create what I'd already developed on the outside to become part of the inside. And so that's where this whole project was a scientific fun place. And that's when I also had met Amanda, and there was an implement that they had, and that implement was part of the magnetic field that I'd been looking for, that I could put in my water source. So that is where that whole project down there was like launching a teenager's vision 25, 30 years later into becoming the Walt Disney that some people see now, you know.
Yeah, that's great.
It's
Um,
incredible.
yeah, what a journey for sure. So you talk a little bit about water frequency and water structuring, and it's been a subject on our podcast in the past here. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your perception of water functionality in our growing systems, and maybe the difference between aquaculture and growing in soil, and whether that's indoors or outdoors. I'm indifferent at the moment, because I think our audience has this perception that growing in water creates a lot of effluence that is wasteful, and growing in soil is the way that we need to go. And I think there's a good mixture here, between understanding what water can do and how we can circulate it, and the efficiencies of aquaculture, and that's not just growing with water, but there's the whole fisheries component, but specifically for sort of the indoor grow or vertical. I'd love your thoughts on that.
Well, and yes, I that's a part of what I, on the agriculture end of it, or the horticultural, and getting into more of the soils and stuff. I worked with that for years, but then when I got interested in the water part of it, that I'd always wanted to develop, that was inside of me, but I just never went there because I was always leaning more to the traditional part of where I wanted to go, and I needed to step into the part of the vision part of it. So I took water, started realizing, working with electrical companies and stuff, they said, man, if you could grow us green algae, we need it because we produce energy. Well, then I had a couple doctor friends of mine and some educational friends, professors from university say, Roger, why don't you grow all the green algae that you always collect? Because green algae is a power source. It's a protein source. So you're going to start seeing it more and more, because a lot of these things I talked about for years, people thought I was stupid, crazy. You know how that is. He's just some kid from a country farm that exaggerated and sat with the cows too long. So I always tell people, it was the development of thinking these things, but then seeing how I could take that balloon and put it into orbit to be able to see where nobody else could see. And so I started taking water sources, playing around with water sources. First, I even started with different bottles of water, all different types of techniques of water, whether it's spring water, purified water, going to the reverse osmosis world. And then I realized the greatest water there is that comes out of the earth is from the mineral areas of the earth. That means where there's been volcanoes, where there's been. So we started extracting oil from water from the depths of off the coast of Africa, 11,000 feet in the trench. We'd go down, 60 feet into the soil, into the sand, and suck out the ocean water. Then we bring it back to America. We test it. We break it down in molecules, see where we could where different things. That's what got me really interested, because I could see, other than sodium, there was so much in salt content. There was so much more in there that people always thought, salt is so bad, salt water is so bad, and this and that. Well, I realized when I was testing the water from the mountain ranges, or testing water from some of the other areas of the country, I realized that there was so many minerals we was messing out on. And so I started taking seed, dropping seed in the different water sources, and then seeing what the seed did. Well, it's sort of like the revelation that came to me was when the first time I had a professor say, have you ever known what the power is inside of a popcorn seed? And I'm like, oh, my uncle grows thousands of acres in Northern America. And he goes, no. He said, what's inside of it? You always said life is inside the seed, but there's water. There's one crystal drop of water inside of every popcorn seed. And I says, really? So that took me to the place that I never could get across. I crossed that line and started realizing that I could test the water the same way that was inside that popcorn seed, but I had to first go in and dissect the water out. When I dissected the water out of a popcorn seed, I found out the power that was within that water source that was in that popcorn seed was all it needed is some type of mineral oil base to be heated up to a certain element to bring forth what was inside that seed out. And that's where I got into the creative point of growing seed and exploding things into its growth outside. We always see things dying on the outside. Everybody's asking the question, what's the difference between aquaponics and aeroponics and horticulture and everything? I say water is powerful, but contaminated water is no different than contaminated soil. So the balance is black and white. One's soil, one's solid, one's liquid. If you can understand how to take those two and find the greatest part in them, then those particles is what you use to expand, whether it be fisheries, whether it be into growing just sprigs or sprouts. And that's where my heart really got into the water source of aquaponics and everything. Even healthier fish. I mean, growing the fish in good water source actually had healthier fish. And then we took all the allergies and we tested them all, and we found out the allergies come from the infections or the impurities that's within the water. So green allergies is the greatest allergy you can get. When it starts turning yellow or brown or black, then you're starting to get into contaminant, and you can get a lot of different funguses, diseases, and things out of that. So
That's fascinating. That's really, I mean, it's amazing how far you've gone down these rabbit holes and really looked at everything. And knowing you, I knew that that would be the case, but you've just mentioned some things that I've never even heard that you were working on. So I guess my biggest question would be, Roger, I mean, looking at the state of the world today and everything that's going on, and based on all the things that you've looked at, all the research that you've done, what would be a couple of pointers that you could give to people who are truly focused on making the soils or the waters healthier to produce healthier foods? Where could they get started? Because there's obviously so many different things we could be working on, so many different things that we could focus on. What would be a couple of good pointers that they could take and go, good, my first few steps that I should work on is this, this, and this? Do you have any tips that you could share along that line?
yes, and that's one of the greatest questions that people have when they say, how do I take the first steps? The first steps is if you're going to grow in soil, you need to make sure your soil is has enough moisture. If it doesn't have enough moisture in it, it's going to decrease the volume of when that sprout comes forth of your seed. Your seed has to have the perfect, exact right environment. So a lot of people just like go over and they plant a seed, whether it be a bean seed or pea seed, whatever. They try the simple ways. That's why I tell them, do the hardy things first. Don't try to do something that's delicate first. Do the hardier things. They let you give a little bit more leeway, both right and left. But when you plant a seed, remember that you need to study, and now today it's all over the internet. You can go on and you can see the basics of this, but the moisture content is what kills 99.9% of people's plants or vegetables and stuff at their household. I never been a green thumb. You don't have to be a green thumb. You just got to know the right wisdom and knowledge to use for it. So if you plant a seed, make sure you're in the right moisture, not too wet, not too dry. Make sure that the seed that you have is not set out for 20 years in an environment where it's going to decay or it dies within it. So it's dormant. It's not going to sprout for you. And make sure that you're going to get seeds and things that if you want to produce great yield, you got to have something that can live either or in or outside of sun rays. You can use lighting, different types of lighting. I always told people when they said you couldn't grow, we growed cannabis. We was one of the largest cannabis growers in the state of Florida years ago. So we knew what it was like back when we grew cannabis to spend thousands of dollars on a light. And we told people we'd grow it in barns, we grow it out in the ocean, everywhere else. But when we growed, we was growing, trying to get a certain fruit off the plant. And so when people would ask us, what is you want a big one, a little? No, we want the fruit to be so rich and pure. And today we see the CBD oil and everything has become a necessary thing that people don't understand how powerful it is for animal extract. In other words, taking the different types of extracts of plants like that, the herbs, because that's what cannabis is, herb, and you take that, you implement it into things on small level, and you can bring power to your animals of immune systems and things. So what I see is when people plant a seed, they need to first ask the question, is the soil going to be the right minerals or richness, right? You don't want to throw a big patty, a cow patty that's raw, into a pot and throw a seed in there. It's going to be way too hot. Same way with rabbit manure, horse manure, all these different things. People does not understand. They just hear this and they just run with it. Always know that just like a concrete layer, he has to know how much sand goes with the clinker or the concrete powder, and he has to know how much water to put with it to get it to the right basis of slump. So in that, you need to have that within growing. So I would encourage people, get good seed. Make sure that the seed you plant is rich and ready to sprout, not something that's old that grandma gave you from 40 years ago. Because you might have 20 seeds and one of them in the last couple of years, people has failed to recognize. I had the seed, we planted it 10 years ago, and they got it rolled up in a thing, stuck in the refrigerator, and they think it's going to last. So that is really what I would say, Amanda, to encourage people. Those three bases, your seed, your soil, or your water, if you want to grow in water, sprouts or whatever, make sure the water is clean, pure, and got good mineral base. And not too hot, not too cold. 75, anywhere from 72, 68, I always say. 68 degrees to 72 is perfect within that water source. And it's also a good base to say that's what my pH needs to be. It's from 68 to 74.
Yeah. What in arable soil farming today, there's a lot of talk of biostimulants that help with water evaporation and water uptake in the root structure. Do you play around with any of that? Have you gotten involved in any of the biostimulants or bio fertilization in your growing?
Yes, and that's one big part. I haven't really talked a lot about it because I'm really experimenting. I have friends all over the world that's giving me different types of soils I'm playing around with. What I've really found out is some of the nuclear soil that people are getting from riverbeds, creeks, old ponds that's dried up, even within the mountain ranges. Get it up off. Don't go down into the creeks or rivers. Go up on the shore banks that's about 3 or 4 foot above. You will find that these types of soils, sands, enrichments of dirt, and putting them together, you can literally create an atomic bomb for the growth. And the growth pattern of growing is always this. I always tell people it's the water, it's the light, and it's how you're actually providing the ingredients to it. There's a lot of people that over fertilize what they already have bought within a bag that they plant their plants in, say soil. There's already soils out there, jungle soils and different ones that really are a perfect level. You just need to add a little bit of moisture content to it that is more mushroom compost type like that. You got to be careful that you're not you buy a bag of soil and then you're adding all these fertilizers to it. And now you've depreciated what actually you needed to just throw it in there, make sure the right moisture, make sure the right thing. Give it time to birth for about 3 or 4 days and spray it with a sprayer. Don't take a water bottle and pour in there, and let that seed get up to where the root base starts growing. Your roots always within the first 21 days need to be the same length as your plant. So if all my microgreens, which Amanda's seen this and we've grown it, every microgreen from 3 hours of planting to it's popping and beginning to sprout, the stem and the root are the same length all the way up for the first 21 days. So no matter if my plant's 5 inches, my root's going to be 5 inches. I can bring it around and they meet. So those are the points of having the perfect structure of nutrients, your water balance, and your wind or light too. Because hot room during the daytime and then it gets cool at night is very harsh on a plant. You need to keep that balance within about a 5 to 10. I wouldn't go no more than 10 degrees difference if you can, because of a continual growth. and everything will grow together. The root and the stem will grow together to produce what it needs to produce.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, when you really look at it that way, like you're saying, I've seen that so many different times. You do have fertile soil. And I remember that about Florida. Florida was so interesting. It was such a challenging environment for so many reasons to grow in, but the soil could be so, so sandy. So the CEC would be so low. But when you've got that nutrient rich soil from the swamps or these different areas, if you're taking that and then you're overdosing the soil with all these additional products, you are then going to be throwing that out of balance. So just kind of allowing Mother Nature to be the beautiful creator that she is, and taking it from there. Now, on the water side of things, I mean, water, as we know, is a worldwide issue right now with the contaminants and then everything that they're pumping into it. And so if you've got, what kind of recommendations would you have for that? Are there any kind of simple systems that people could use, or different technologies that can be employed to kind of chill out the water that we're currently using? Because that can vary so much just state to state in the United States, let alone in different countries. Any kind of tips or recommendations to get the waters up to a good level?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I taught people when we used to do a lot of stuff in the Caribbean and third world countries, we was taking polluted water and we was turning it where it would be drinkable. And excuse me, in that was basically, if you take a bag of charcoal, and I don't get the charcoal that has the lighting fluid on it and all that. Get a basic raw charcoal, pieces of wood that's been burnt. You can get that in stores and stuff. Get that. I usually say about 4 inches of charcoal, and you can build a box, or you can take a 5-gallon bucket, drill holes in the bottom of it, and then have another bucket under it so your water go through it. You need about 1.5 to 2 foot of sand, white sand or sand that they use for like sand boxes and things like that. You can buy it at the store, Ace Hardware, any of these places. That is what you want on the very top level. So on the very top level, you're going to have about 1.5 foot of sand. Then you can buy the black fabric that you put down for weed barrier, and then you just poke holes in that, a few holes like pencil-sized holes in that black fabric, and that's what the water will go through. That sand first it'll go through. That'll filtrate all the micronutrient imbalances and things to its source. By the time it goes through the charcoal, you'll find out that the water will come out with a lot. You won't see many impurities or anything. You can put another basic filter on the bottom of that, like an air conditioned filter or something if you wanted to. Not fiberglass, but I'm talking about a natural cotton filter or something, and let it go through it. At that point, 99.9% of the time, we found out Haiti and different places that had high levels of chemicals and pollution in the water it was drinkable then. It was as much and as creative of the water that we have coming out in the mountains that you drink going down the streams, that people say, oh, you're going to get sick. We was cattle ranchers. We lived working the cattle. We drank out of the creeks and the rivers and streams and everything. We never died. But the point is there is levels that you can get that's too much for your body to fight in that. So what you want to do is you want to have that sand first, breaks down the big particles and the basic chemical balances. And then the charcoal will actually neutralize a lot of the chemicals that actually you could get sick from.
What an
And then
amazing
they could use it for
system.
growing. Yep.
That's incredible, because that's something too. I know I was talking to one of my guys in Ecuador, and they have such a big issue down there with contaminants from their rivers, and then they were spraying the nurseries, so that's contaminating the house plants, and then they're bringing the plants into the home, and they were kind of starting to look at like what the human effect could be of having these plants with fungus and bacteria and stuff like that. But this is such an easy system. I mean, they could do that on a large scale. Like you said, 5-gallon bucket for personal use. They have their drinking water, but that could easily be replicated on large scale. So just making sure you get at that base level of the chemicals and the most obvious destructive ingredients in the water, that alone would add to that formula of how to truly start to help the plants to recover and the soil to recover and produce healthy food. That's brilliant. Thank you for that.
One of the things that I just want to share too is after I started doing all these studies and this stuff, I wanted to get to where I could actually create what I had envisioned when I was a young kid. I don't know if you ever watched the Jetsons. We always heard of the Jetsons on TV. It was a cartoon. The little vacuum cleaner turned around and did the cooking, did the cleaning, did it. But she would always go to the table when she'd set the table and there's a plate, and she would throw this capsule on the plate. And it wasn't food that was on there. The capsule would turn to like steak or baked potato, whatever, you know what I'm saying. And that grabbed me at a young age. And so now I have 5 different products that I've created in Supplement Element that I've had my prayers really asking God to bring the right people, because I believe we've already tested it. FDA and all of them are like blown away by what it's done to people, and helped them get from, I mean, they had diseases, sicknesses, fibromyalgia, everything. And within a kid, and they're in their 60s. And blood balance, blood pressures, everything. And that's just the first one. That's the one with the microgreens that I showed you how I was developing these things with the 7 different microgreens. So there's a lot of stuff out there today that people are taking online. And I don't say anything because I don't talk bad about people's what they've done. But people are saying these have got greens in them. These got this and that. Ours is 100% green powder from the products, a certain amount in each one. I had a download of these things years ago. And one of the things that I found out is I was able to create a capsule that a person could take. Say we send, a lot of these things overseas or whatever. You take that capsule, which has been grown with the right element of soils or water, whatever I'm, growing at hydroponics or aquaponics. We've taken the product, freeze dried it, put it into play, and then I've developed now 7 different. I got 5 major ones that I got copyrighted of how do you want to say it, formulas that I could take these products, and literally we've tested them for over 10 years now. These products could turn humanitarian starvation upside down. They could take 1 capsule and drink water daily and literally survive the rest of their life if they did that. And they'll have all the nutrients, they'll have everything they need. And it all starts from where we started today: how to grow, what to grow, and the environments and stuff that it's grown in does affect it. I mean, people don't realize if it's grown outside, you can't control the atmosphere in the air, but you can put it in an environment where it filtrates it. So I always tell people a lot of times, make sure that you got good water that you're misting your plants with or watering. And when we deal with farms and ranches and stuff, we always tell them, use your brains. Test your water every once in a while. You can buy those little testers. Test them and find out where the alkalinity and stuff is. That'll tell you what your plants are actually really getting. So they might look pretty, but it don't mean they're healthy. So I just wanted to give that to you guys, because I believe eventually I have some capsules and stuff now that I could believe we could send them to any country in the world, supply them out, take a water bottle, have the belly in there, put that capsule in that belly, break it, shake it, and those people can be living all over the world without having to try to supply thousands and thousands of tons of rice and beans and find enough cattle and everything else. I believe we could take a water bottle and save lives. And if they had a water bottle a day, if get a bottle that they could go and fill up by good water, I believe we have what Joseph in the Bible talked about. He fed the whole world. He fed the nations. I believe we're about to do that, but I have to have the right people with me that believe that this can be happening. It's just the natural ways of growing. I mean, it's doing things right.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. One of the things that I would like to ask you, Roger, just taking a broader step back on all the amazing things that you're working on and the functionality, and what do you think is going right in agriculture today? Because we spend a lot of time on what isn't going so well and what we can improve on and what we can innovate or iterate on. But I think there is a merit to just recognizing some of the good things that are going on today in agriculture, and whether that's arable or controlled environment, and that's all inclusive of vertical and greenhouse and aquaponics. But there is this combination and this richness to just taking a moment to pause, that there are some really good things going on, as much as there are some major constraint points, the cattle industry being one of them. Let's talk about everyone's perspective of what's actually working today.
Correct. What you just said is one of the biggest things. I see so many great things happening, especially in our dairy. A lot of our dairies, I'm friends with owners and stuff, and they've cut way back on their natural dairies. They went from being commercialized to more natural, and I've tasted the stuff everywhere. Good milks, good creams, good butters, good. I've realized that there's starting to be a generation that's being awakened and really trying to figure out, okay, if our ancestors lived so long or lived so well, why are we not? And now we're seeing with farmers and ranchers trying to get back to the surplus. I know when I was in Iowa for 6 years, I was up there doing a lot of stuff in the heartland, and when I was in Iowa, I found out a lot of the old timers, their kids was going to college and then moving off to some other state and didn't want the land. These are mega farmers. And a lot of them started saying, man, if we could just get somebody we could just turn it over to that would run with it. And I've seen many of them get out of using a lot of the, they stopped using a lot of the gases, a lot of the things that they was putting into the ground for generations, thought it was good, and they couldn't get their land back to its normal state. They started testing areas of their land and saying, let's go back to the old normal way. We disc it, we let it sit for a year or two, let it aerate, and I'm seeing now across all of America, really, even in California, I'm seeing a lot more people going back into time, really, and starting to test different areas of their land, their ranches, even for cattle and everything. They're trying to get back to where we don't put so much emphasis on trying to change the world. We put emphasis on how to make the world better with what we have. And I see ranches and a lot of farmers starting to say, the only way we're going to get there is actually start testing again. Because just because Joe does it in California doesn't mean Mary up in New York, it's going to be the same thing and it's going to react the same way. And I see that as one of the biggest problems that we have right now, that we haven't recognized the great things that are happening within the farming and the agriculture communities. And people are starting to recognize how important it is to be more self-sustainable within their own cattle, their own beef, their own, poultry, whatever, and not rely on everybody else's ideas, but find out what works for them and start bettering it by information and revelation that people have in different parts. So I really believe that we have a lot of great things happening. A lot of the big cattle ranches I'm here with. I don't know if you guys know the Mormon Corporation had a farm that I used to do a lot of John Deere stuff down in Florida. Well, when we moved up to the Panhandle of Florida, they bought out the massive area, about 400 something thousand acres, and they're going to be running about 11,000 head of cattle. Well, a lot of these people that work there and stuff, we've been talking to, I've been working with them. They do a lot of environmental stuff, trying to, restore the grounds and taking out trees and putting in this and then restoring some of the trees. And they're doing so many things that I'm seeing that is a positive, not a negative. It's not just about the number of cattle. It's not just about, but the meat, I'm telling you, the steaks almost melt in your mouth because the cattle is not stressed. It's let out there. They feed it. They do the things the right way. And they have different parts that they grow, different things they do. But what I'm seeing within a lot of the cattle ranchers are learning from different people, such as them and different ones, learning things that we was taught was wrong. Sort of like people saying coffee's bad for you. Well, okay, whatever. And the thing is, I believe that we're about ready to take what you're talking about. Let's start looking more towards the positive end of things. And let's find out what doesn't work and turn things around. And I'm the one that says, when somebody says, I have a problem doing this or growing this, or I have a problem with water source, can you help me? I love to go in because my mind doesn't look at the negative. It looks at the resources of how can I turn that around. I want to bring a solution to everything. And I'm not an everything person, but I believe that between all of us and those that actually communicate, we can find parts of connections around the world that we can start working with each other. And I believe the positive in the farms and ranches and agriculture industry will thrive, and it will come back to a place to where what I'm talking about, it's not just about having these supplements, but the supplements are what we can't, as farmers and ranchers, can't provide enough food for the people that are starving, even in our own countries. We need to really get to an element that we can use that as a supplement right now, a supplementary way of being able to nutritional values and everything. But it takes farmers to do that. So if we can get the people to understand that they can use their small farms to provide a certain amount and make profit off of what we're trying to get supply from. So I believe there's great positive things happening. A lot of ranchers that I talk to and a lot of the industry that I'm in, I'm seeing more and more people getting excited about what people are turning around and going back to hand and foot and grass roots end of agriculture.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so
I
much for
agree.
that. I guess we're getting near to the end of the podcast here. We usually try to go about 45 minutes, and you've just been a wealth of knowledge, Roger. And I want to pick your brain some more. And I think you might have found a community within Grow here and our
About to
larger
say,
ecosystem for some of your solutions. Let's just leave it at that. A big
yeah,
umbrella. And so I'd love to share a bit more with you about, maybe where the community can come in. And if you're listening to
absolutely.
this audience, we will have ways that you can connect with Roger and reach out to him. But Roger, this is the point where in the podcast, though you've been doing a lot of sharing, I'd also like to give you just a platform maybe to promote anything you'd love to promote. You've already done some promotion on your green. But is there anything else that you would like the audience to know? Where you're going to be located, trade shows, speaking engagements, websites that they should check out? This is your moment to self-promote.
More internal, focusing on the region here in North Florida. We're fixing to start back up traveling again and doing some different things at a lot of the different trade shows and food and agriculture workshops that we're doing. What I've been focusing on now is trying to develop more communication and connections with people to where such podcasts and things like that can be done to where we have a larger scale. People don't have to fly in from Canada or some other country to get the information. They can actually go on like what you guys are doing, but do it as a specific question answer. That's my goal, is to build something eventually, working with somebody that where I can come in and I can actually do question and answer. They can already be there. In other words, people would already post them. They would already ask the questions. It would already be lined up. And we would go through, say 50 of them. We'd go through them, break them down, and give them. My heart is really to connect with people that want to be a team and build information and revelation out there for other people that have been trying to find just the answers to life. Because I feel like, I think one of my worst fears is dying, going to the grave at a young age. I'm in my mid-50s, and I always tell people all the time, uh, people say, you got such knowledge. I do, because of what I put myself around growing up. And any time there was an opportunity, I grabbed it. So for anybody that would be hearing this, to connect to us is great, but have questions. Don't just run around looking to touch somebody, shake their hand, and say, man, it was great to meet you. Have questions that are hard, that other people can't answer. And that's the significance, I believe, that we are in right now in the world, is we need to have answers to things, how to grow, how do I produce my own food at home. We have all kinds of things that we do in 55-gallon drums, so whole families can grow their garden on what do you call it, balconies and stuff, and they don't have no land. But these are the keys into the kingdom, I believe, of creating a mindset that we all can do that. So my heart is really connecting with people now, and I've backed off a lot of the travel. I was in California for a year, and then down in Texas did a massive $6 million project. And I just said, I got to back off, spend time with my family. My last son, I got one from 32 all the way down to 19 or 18 years old. So the last one's graduating high school. So now I'm going to be able to focus more on spending time going out doing things. But my heart is to help bring more information and more revelation to people. But I have to have a question to answer, not just a thought that they want to try to figure something out. We can all try to figure things out, but I believe somebody has the answer. And I would love to give a lot of answers, a lot of falling, tripping, stumbling, running into brick walls over the years, but I've tested souls across the nations of the world, and I've tested waters, and I believe that we can connect some things together that could build a huge, huge environment of industry for people to be able to do things right, and the right way, I should say, and do them a successful way to help each other.
Couldn't have said it better, Roger. I believe you're 100% correct. And really, if I may, Neil, I just kind of dove in on this one. It really, we're in the age of data. I totally agree. And that is really, when we boil it down to the base level of what we're doing with Grow United, it's all about data on the blockchain, an immutable ledger where it cannot be manipulated, but the data says what it says. And you've got, so much history of looking at the information that you're now able to solve problems that others haven't even thought of. And by the way, I would love to help you with that goal. You and I should definitely connect. I know a lot of those great minds, as I know we all do, and we can bring them together, because that's what we need. We need the data. We need to be able to look at things to solve these different problems in different regions. And I understand what you're saying. Bring the questions in. We don't have the time for everybody just to chit chat, but let's get down to the brass tacks and actually get this fixed. And so we do have that phenomenal community here at Grow United, a lot of different rewards and ways to back up the guys out there doing the good work. So we've got a lot of good conversations that you and I should continue. And I really think that you found a really positive place here with this team. It's why I'm here. I know that's why Neil's here. And I just completely agree. I think that what you said is right on the money, and I will help you sort that out. Help make that happen.
Amazing. Well, with that, I think that's a great way to maybe wrap this up. Some good thoughts there, and community. Let's underpin that as a stepping stone forward here. Roger, again, thank you so much for taking some time. We look forward to having you on in future cases with questions for you to answer beyond what we've started here. And so for all of you listening, whether you're watching or tuning in an audio version, this will be streamed on all the major platforms. Information is in the link below here, and please add your comments and start sharing these info sessions, because that's how we continue to build community. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Until next time, we'll catch you on the next Pasture Prime Time.
Thank you, team.